What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of me talking some shit. Today, I just want to discuss the elephant in the room, which is the release, or I guess the announcement. I'm not sure if it's released yet. Should have probably looked at that. The release and or announcement of the Red vraptor XLX. So, in true Red fashion, just like the Komodo and the Komodo X, this vraptor X is now the bee's knees when it comes to Red cameras. And if everything that is being claimed, which I've actually started to see come out, is accurate, it's going to be a beast of a camera. All right, so let's back up for a second. If you talk to anybody who has been shooting for any amount of time and knows their cameras, you said, hey, what's your favorite camera? Or what would be your dream camera? I guarantee you many, if not most, would say an RA Alexa, whether it be an Alexa Mini or an Alexa LF. Regardless, point is, we all know as shooters that Alexa is generally cream of the crop, Red fanboys aside, which, I am indeed a huge Red fan. However, it's only really because I can't afford an Alexa. So, however, the big thing is you have, Alexa, right? So 16, 17 stops of dynamic range, incredible color, pretty good in low light, pretty much industry standard. I mean, very well known and pretty much what all of Hollywood uses, except for a few different productions using Red or Venice. So with all that said, right, why is that? Besides the things that I've already mentioned, most cameras have just gotten close to what an Alexa does or can do. Again, mainly in the dynamic range department, color, fidelity, their RAW is just out of this world. And we all know, again, the pedigree that Ari carries, whether, it's cameras, lighting, etc. So where does this vraptor stack up, right? So as a Komodo X owner, I know a lot of people probably think I wasted money by doing the upgrade. For me, this is probably the best camera I've ever owned. I haven't owned an Alexa or a Raptor. So for me, this is actually my A cam, and I would love to use this pretty much every chance I get. But, right, here's the but. The Raptor XLX, right, is like huge. And I don't think people really quite understand why this is. So I'm not going to go too deep into the global shutter versus rolling shutter sensor, right? So most cameras will not have a global shutter. Komodo X is not the first. Blackmagic actually rolled a global shutter camera way back when. It wasn't too hot. I'm sure there's probably global shutter cameras before that, possibly. But Blackmagic didn't invent it, but they are one of the ones that I know of recent times that came out with it. Red has obviously just, I don't know if perfected it is the word, but they've done a damn good job on the Komodo and Komodo X with this global shutter, especially with the redesign on the X and the extra horsepower with extra frame rates, etc., etc. So the reason the vraptor X is so huge, and I think people don't really realize just how huge, is because it is the first in the world, period, vistavision sized sensor that is global shutter. So for those that don't know, vistavision is just slightly larger than full frame. So it's basically a large format sensor, which is huge, literally and figuratively. So that in and of itself is gigantic. Okay, the puns gotta stop. So anyway, it's good news. It's huge news because global shutter is, I guess, relatively new to many shooters since they've, it's kind of new tech in a sense. It's just been rehashed and redone. But I think it's super important. The motion, the lack of flicker in many situations with certain lighting, just the cadence of what it looks like. It's definitely different than your average sensor. And yeah, you can have very low sensor readout speed on a rolling shutter and it will look close, but it's still not quite a global shutter sensor. Previously, global shutters have had limitations with dynamic range, which is what happened with the old Blackmagic camera. So it had a pretty limited dynamic range in comparison to other cameras in their lineup. So that's one of the reasons it didn't do so well. It was also pretty huge. So my whole point with this is Red has kind of blown the doors off the camera world right now. And it's probably a good thing to start doing some research and paying attention to just how big this actually is. So they have a system in the vraptor X called HDRX, where they had it before previously, but you had to do it in post. And in essence, it would take 2 exposures at the same time, one at a lower level, so you can recover your highlights. Now, as I'm hearing and I'm seeing that the VRaptor X has the horsepower to do this in camera, and you can also choose to turn it off in post. Now, there are some limitations with the frame rates. I believe you cannot go past a certain amount of frames. Mind you, the camera by default does 8K at 120 and 4K at 240 frames per second. So huge once again. But they are claiming in standard mode 17 plus stops of dynamic range, which, if true, is getting very close to an ARRI Alexa, especially the Alexa 35, which is like 18 stops, I believe, 18 plus. But with this technology, HDRX, I mean, Jared described it as HDRX times 1,000 or 10,000. But point being that it's a big improvement on the previous iteration of this technology. And from the samples I've seen, it has not affected noise performance. It has not affected, there is a motion issue with the fact that it's taking 2 frames. And so you might get like a little ghosting. So apparently that's not the case anymore, which again is big. But it's claimed to be 20 plus stops of dynamic range, which again is true, is giving ARRI a run for their money. And I know a lot of purists will probably, pull out the pitchforks and flame me for this, but we just gotta be honest. I mean, at the end of the day, cameras are just tools that we use to tell stories. So from that perspective, I don't really believe in being a fanboy of any one camera or camera system. I actually own a Canon R5 that I do some videos on, the Komodo X. My main workhorse besides this is an FX6. I'm shooting on an FX3 right now. So I'm kind of a generalist when it comes to camera packages. I really enjoy learning to use different camera packages, and you should know the strengths and weaknesses of each, because if you're ever tasked as a DP, for example, or a cam op to go on a shoot, you kind of want to know your way around each camera. So it's a good practice to just kind of get familiar. But again, just not to sidetrack too long, we should be more focused on the way technology is pushing things forward. AI aside, I'm sure that's a hot topic right now too, but this is a big deal. And again, if what they're claiming is true, we're going to have a huge competitor for ARRI going forward, which honestly is good news for us as consumers, because this is going to drive prices more in line. Also, I mean, ARRI ultimately can do whatever they want. They're, again, top dogs, and they're very, very, very well established in the film industry. So their pricing could be whatever they want, honestly, and they'll still get it. So for us mere mortals who can only afford maybe a VRaptor after a couple good shoots, this is really good news for us to be able to push the boundaries of how we can shoot and what tools we have available. Red is not sponsoring me. Nobody knows me truly. I just personally think this is a good opinion piece because, again, one of my friends messaged me and he's like, just sending me the link. And he's like, eh. And I was like, you have no idea, man. Like, this is like mind blowing, actually. All the things that they're claiming that this camera can do. And, it's basically a big brother to the Komodo X in all its forms now. Komodo X was kind of like pretty much on VRaptor's knees, if you will. So, again, some people may disagree, but it was very close to what I would consider a high-end cinema camera, as small as you can see it here. But with the higher frame rates, the slightly better dynamic range, I personally am very happy with the Komodo X purchase and the upgrade. I know a lot of you may disagree, but for me, it's definitely made a worthy investment. Shout out to Mutiny. They also did not pay me. Unfortunately, I'm still trying to get paid from all these people. This battery plate rocks. And yeah. So what do you guys think? Personally, I feel like this is great news. As I mentioned, for us consumers, for the competition, for technology, for pushing forward, and ultimately will benefit all of us. I'm really excited to see what the VRaptor X is capable of, and really have somebody, I'm probably watching Carlos Quintero or something, put it through its paces and see if they can break the image. For that, I'm like super pumped about to see if all that they're claiming is accurate. Anyway, thanks so much for listening to my rant and or rave. See you later.